Hello and welcome back to Meducation Nation. As always, my name is Tomorrow's Medic. I'm a fourth year medic at Imperial College London, and boy do I have a banger of a video for you guys today. As I'm sure most of you are going to be well underway with your UCAT preparation, and now is around about the time where you guys are kind of figuring out what are your best sections, but also what are your worst sections. Now, statistically speaking, the UCAT verbal reasoning section is the one that students find the hardest. It's the most time pressured, and also statistically, it's the worst performing section on the UCAT. As a result, I've decided to create this video guide for you guys, going through little tips and tricks, techniques to try and boost your overall performance on this section, to try and boost your overall UCAT score. As always, timestamps on screen now and in the description. Without further ado, cue that intro and let's go. So in terms of the format of the UCAT verbal reasoning section, essentially what you are given is a 200 to 300 word free text passage, and you have to answer related questions. So you are actually given 44 questions to do in 21 minutes, and how it works is you are essentially given 11 passages with 4 related questions per passage. So that works out at about 2 minutes per set of 4 questions, or 30 seconds per question itself. So you can see why it's so time pressured, and students really struggle with their timing and find this section really difficult. In terms of the two main types of questions you will get true, false, can't tell questions, where you essentially have to ascertain whether the statements are true, false, or you can't tell from the passage that you are given. Or you will be given free text questions, where you'll be given a statement or a question, and you have to choose the appropriate free text that best completes that statement or answers that question based on the free text passage that you are given. So how can you practice your verbal reasoning section to try and boost your score? Now, the first point is going to be pretty self-explanatory, something you guys would already know, and that is obviously do as many of the questions as you can. Practice, be it online question banks or question books. Now, the second key point that I'm going to say that some of you may not have thought of is try and get in the habit of reading things like newspaper articles, magazine articles, journal articles, whatever it may be. Essentially, what you're trying to do is get in the habit of assimilating large bodies of text into the key take-home messages, which is a key skill essential for the verbal reasoning section. So now on to the tips and my technique for tackling that section 1. Now, the first point, it's a major point, it's the most important point that I'm going to say to you guys today, and that is make sure you read the question first. Reason being is you want to be able to zoom in on that text. You want to know what you're looking for, so you can review that text with a magnifying glass, zoom in on those key details so you can answer the question. You don't want to be reading the text first, not knowing what you're looking for, and also you're not going to be able to remember everything on the first time, so you're going to end up having to go back to it again and again, which is going to take a lot more time than if you were to read the question first. So that's a big major key on improving your verbal reasoning. A second major point that I want to say is don't skip the true, false, can't tell questions. Reason being, these tend to be easier, these tend to take a little less time than the harder statement questions, so you don't want to be missing out on these easier marks, and don't get in the trap of getting too bogged down on the statement questions if you get them initially, because what might happen is at the end you have a load of true, false, can't tell questions and you won't have enough time to cash in on those easier marks. And on the whole point of timing, make sure you flag questions you don't know. I know it's common sense, but you really don't want to be spending too much time and missing out on easier marks. Remember, 30 seconds per question. And again, in the whole stress of the moment, under the time pressure, it's very easy for you guys to essentially misread a question. So a big thing that I'm going to say to you guys is look out for negative questions, i.e., which of these statements is not true. That single word not, it changes the whole context and meaning of the question, and you can see how easy it might be for your mind to forego that single word, which is going to change the whole meaning of that question. Now, another big key point that I want to make abundantly clear to you guys is, let's say you have a passage that you know a lot about. Oh yes, this is my area of expertise. Don't get too gassed about that, because the reason is you can only use the information available in the text to answer the question. And obviously, a final point I want to say to you guys, and it's quite difficult for students, especially medical students who are quite meticulous with things, who've done lots of exams before and like to make sure everything is correct and everything is going right. You don't have the time to keep double checking things. Yeah, you have to put in the answer and you have to move on. So now that we've discussed more general techniques, I want to go through some specific techniques that you guys are going to find incredibly useful and is undoubtedly going to change the game for you guys. Now, the first one is something I like to call the keyword technique. And essentially what that is you're going to look for a key word in the question. And what a keyword is, it's a single word or a phrase that is unlikely to be repeated throughout the passage. So what that allows you to do is really zoom in, dial in to the exact point in the passage in which the question is referring to. Now, a keyword can be anything from a date, a number, be it a statistic, or something that is in a different language, etc. Something that isn't likely to be repeated. And what that allows you to do, like I said, is you can really zoom in on the correct part of the passage that the question is referring to, read the sentence before and after, and this is going to save you guys a lot of time rather than just working your way throughout the whole passage. So now the next specific technique that I want to tell you guys about is something I like to call the extreme language technique. Now, unlike the keyword technique, this is a technique that you only want to resort to if you find yourself in the unfortunate position of having to guess your answers. If you're running out of time and you're guessing, this technique is going to help you increase the chances of guessing correctly. So obviously in an ideal world, you don't want to have to resort to this technique, but if you are guessing, you want to maximize your chances of guessing correctly. You never want to leave a question blank. So essentially what the extreme language technique is when you're guessing questions or whatever, if in the question there are extreme phrases, then the answer is less likely to be true and more likely to be false or can't tell. So this is a technique that is just going to help you guess correctly if you find yourself in that situation. But I don't recommend that you use this if you have enough time, you do the question properly. Okay, so now on to author questions. So occasionally in the UCAT section 1, you may have something called author or writer questions, where essentially you have to look for the author's opinion. Now, a quick tip on this is the author's opinion is most likely to be found in the final paragraph. So a quick time-saving technique here, guys, is don't read through the passage all the way from the top to the bottom. You want to start with the final paragraph, as you're most likely to find the answer there, and you don't want to have to waste all that time working your way down the passage. So that's a key tip. Now, if you were to guess or flag or skip certain types of questions, the author or writer questions are really the ones that you should be looking to skip, or guess at least. Never skip a question, always put an answer down. It is multiple choice and there is no negative marking. But these are the ones where you want to be guessing if you're running out of time. Reason being is they can be quite long-winded and they do tend to take a lot of time. So you want to maximize your time on other questions, true, false, can't tells, where you can gain your marks quicker and easier. So, that's another tip that you should take on board. A quick thing with the author or writer questions is there may be certain questions which say, what is the author's strongest opinion? So what you might find is that all of the answer choices are actually the author's opinion, but only one of them would be the strongest opinion. So just be aware of those. Okay, so now we're going to go through some worked examples. Let's cue the screen.
So on screen now we have the very first practice question. It's a true, false, can't tell question about a passage talking about the Titanic ship. The question asks, was the Titanic sunk on the April 15th, 1912? So pause the screen now, give yourselves about 30 seconds to have a go at answering this, and we'll go through the answer. Right, so this is a bit of a trick question, and the answer is actually can't tell. Now I know most of you would actually put true, and remember, when you're answering verbal reasoning questions, you can only use information that is available in the passage. So the only reference to the Titanic in this passage is in the line here where it says it was suggested the ship be called Titanic. So all it says is that it may have been called Titanic. There's no definitive proof the ship was called Titanic. And there's no other reference to the name of the ship, but it is shown that the ship did sink. So from this, you cannot tell whether the ship that sank was called Titanic. So that's why the answer is can't tell. Okay, so the next question we have here, again, refers to the same passage. It's a true, false, can't tell question. Pause the screen now and give yourselves about 30 seconds to have a go at answering this, and we'll go through the answer. Okay, so the answer to this question is, again, C, you cannot tell. Now, the way that I would approach this type of question is to try and use the key word technique, because watertight compartments is something that wouldn't really be repeated commonly throughout the text. So if you look for watertight compartments, you can see it right here. Read the sentence before and after, and you can say that 4 of the watertight compartments might have been withstood. The key word here is might, so you cannot be for sure that 4 watertight compartments would have been withstood. Therefore, the answer is C, can't tell.
Thank you very much for tuning in to another banger of a video. And as I said at the start, this is the section that most students perform poorly on and find the hardest. So I hope this video has been useful for you guys to really help you guys take your exam performance to the next level. Remember, please like, subscribe, share these videos, and we'll be back next time. From Education Nation, over and out.
Cheers.